this evening, I have persons from the Virgin Islands Alzheimer's Association that will be sharing with us the important work that they do as well as the disease. So with no further ado, I'd like to welcome Dr. June Samuel, who is the Vice President of the Board of the Association, as well as Ms. Edna Williams, who is the Founding Director. Welcome, ladies.
Good evening.
Thank you, Shaina, and good evening.
All right, so looking forward to our conversation tonight, as it will be one about public awareness and education. I think this is a very important topic that we can't ever talk enough about, so looking forward. So tell us a little bit, Ms. Williams, as far as what's the Alzheimer's Association?
We started about 4 years ago with the idea of sharing information about Alzheimer's through advertising in the newspapers. We did that for about a year. Then we started forming a group, a committee, and it became part of the Rotary Club of Road Towns objectives for that year under Ryan Gulick, who happens to be the president of the association.
Okay.
And with that, we also included or got involved in a collaborative effort with the Lions Club, Carvin Malone specifically, and we became partners in providing some awareness on Alzheimer's. So we started the Alzheimer's Awareness Advocate Committee, something to that effect.
Okay.
And from that, we then developed a plan, you know, and really start focusing on a mission and an objective and developing a vision as to how we want to go about sharing information and bringing awareness to the BVI community about Alzheimer's and other dementias.
Okay. So Dr. Samuel, as far as the vision and objectives of the association, what are some of those activities that you guys would like to accomplish?
Well, I think the major vision really is we would like to see the BVI having a Virgin Islands that is dementia friendly. So dementia is one of the growing problems that we are now encountering among the elderly population, and it is also becoming more of a concern in a younger age group. And worldwide, you know, it is considered to be one of the challenges that we are going to have to deal with to some extent in the next few years. And for persons who face living with dementia, any form of dementia, and specifically Alzheimer's, living with the condition can be challenging, and the community as a whole has to have an awareness and an understanding of the challenges that these individuals may face, so that the way that we organize ourselves within our communities would allow persons who are living with the condition to have, to receive empathy. We would be caring. We would recognize these individuals to have, as persons who have rights and who have a right to a certain quality of life. Okay, we often think that persons who have dementia or who have Alzheimer's, they're losing their memory. We leave them at home, we isolate them, we treat them as if they are not there. We talk around them, we make decisions for them. And we completely forget that they're human beings, and they're still having their own experiences. And so having a community that is dementia friendly would dictate that within all of our systems that these individuals have to come into contact with, that there will be a recognition that we should make allowances. It's like when you're working with individuals with disabilities, you make allowances, yes, so that these persons continue to be a part of the fabric of our society. So that is our vision. And one of our main objectives, as Edna said earlier, is really to increase the level of awareness, to bring it to the forefront of our thinking, particularly as it relates to ensuring that persons, when they see certain signs and symptoms, take appropriate measures in terms of, getting properly evaluated, and ensuring that, certain plans are made for that individual.
Another objective that we have is to advocate on behalf of the individuals who have dementia, advocate not only to the community but to government and to other public entities and private entities for the recognition of their issues and their concern. In addition to that, help develop policies that would help provide the services, the care that the individual would need. So advocacy. In addition to that, training. Training and education is a major objective which we have. Individuals who are in the community, the family members, carers, professionals, caregivers need education about how to work with or how to care for someone with dementia. And one of our major objectives is to provide that education and training that's necessary for that.
All right, excellent. So, Dr. Samuel, just before we go to the break, let's talk a bit about, I guess, the medical terminology of what is dementia, because I think persons, the slang would be like, we talk about persons being senile.
Right.
But it's I think a lot more than just with age we're losing memory, but there are other things that could be taking place in the person's brain. So let's talk a bit about that and some of the science, and then when we come back we'll get into some more detail.
Okay, so dementia essentially is it's an umbrella term that refers to a number of conditions that affect where the brain is affected, and there is the brain is affected in such a way that it affects a person's memory, their behaviors, their personality, and their ability to function on a day-to-day basis. Simply put, that's the simple way to put it. And as I said, it's an umbrella term, so a lot of times we use the term dementia interchangeably with many different conditions, but the broad term is dementia, and there are many different types of dementia. Right. So Alzheimer's dementia is the most common. It accounts for about 50 to 60% of the cases that we would know about. But there are other common forms of dementia that we see even here in the BVI. There's vascular dementia, which can often result when persons have strokes or any sort of cerebrovascular accident. So you can see a particular type of dementia associated with those conditions. The way that the longitudinal, the way that it plays out over time is a little bit different to Alzheimer's. There's also another type of dementia called Lewy body dementia, which is a more aggressive form, and it presents with other types of symptoms. So that particularly, is more neurological. There's more of a neurological focus with that. And then there's frontotemporal dementia. So those are the four most common types. But Alzheimer's is the one that, we tend to be more concerned about because of the progression of the condition, and from, the effect that it has on an individual's quality of life over time.
All right. So in terms of a cause, what causes Alzheimer's? Or is it one of those where the research is still out?
So
it's a combination.
There's a
they both laugh as if they have a secret, people. But we want to know what the secret is. Good.
No secret.
Good.
What would you say?
So the causes, go ahead.
There are three things that research is looking at in terms of what causes Alzheimer's, or what you may say put someone at risk for Alzheimer's. The first is a genetic component. There are certain genes that have been identified with, in persons with Alzheimer's. Then there is the environmental factors. Such as chemical exposure, what we eat, the air, you know, a whole bunch of chemicals.
Okay.
Then there is the third factor, which is a lifestyle. I mean, they say what you eat affects your brain, or whatever affects your heart affects your brain.
Right.
So persons with diabetes, high blood pressure, any kind of respiratory illness, those illnesses also impact the brain. So we're looking at three basic things combining to really affect the individual's brain functioning and the degeneration of the brain.
Okay.
Genes, environment, and lifestyle.
And lifestyle. Okay. So that's basically everything.
Right, exactly.
All right, so we'll take a break and come back and talk more in terms of the symptoms and then the treatments. So if you just tuned in, you're tuned into the Vigilate Dialogues. I'm your host this evening, Shaina Smith, and we've been talking about the Virgin Islands Alzheimer's Association and the work that they do. So we'll get more into detail when we come right back. Welcome back. You're tuned into the Vigilate Dialogues. I'm your host, Shaina Smith. Welcome you to National Boardroom. This evening, we've been talking with persons from the Virgin Islands Alzheimer's Association, Dr. June Samuel and Miss Edna Williams, and they've been sharing with us. We just left off on a break. We were talking about what is the dementia, what is Alzheimer's disease. So let's talk a little bit more now, Dr. Samuel, in terms of the signs and symptoms. What should we be looking for?
So the central sign, the main sign associated with most forms of dementia is a loss of memory. With Alzheimer's, there is a loss of the what we call the working memory, which is that that part of your memory that stores immediate information.
Okay.
You know, in order to and processes it to pass it into your medium and your long-term memory. So that manifests itself by persons becoming repetitive. So they may seem to ask the same questions over and over, although you may have just told them the same thing 3 minutes ago. And that, you know, then affects their day-to-day function, because then they may not remember something as simple as whether they had breakfast or not, if they had a meal recently. Okay, so that is the central sign that you see with most patients who present. Changing personality is another. So with all of these things, you're looking at changes, right? So anything that is outside of the norm for that individual. So changing personality. So persons who may have been normally outgoing, you know, social, chatty, energetic, now becomes more withdrawn, seeming depressed, seeming like they're not wanting to socialize. Depression in the elderly, persons presenting with depression, one of the things that we have to rule out is whether that individual is having an early form of dementia. Okay, so changing personality, difficulty with social skills. So, you know, social skills is you know, the social norms that we know of, you know, in terms of the way we behave, the way we interact. So lots of those social norms, persons doing things like dressing inappropriately, not dressing at all. Those, you know, you may see some of those, you know, changes occurring. They're socially disinhibited, so they behave in ways that, you know, you know, somebody who normally is, what would we say, quite
active, outgoing, they would change. And many times they change because they're experiencing something happening within themselves. And they don't want to go out and be in a public area or in a social group that other people can then recognize and see those changes, because they're afraid people will see that. You know, and with that, they tend to stay by themselves.
They withdrawn,
exactly. You know, so the mood changes, sometimes their interaction with daily as Dr. Samuel said, daily activities. So their whole day-to-day aspect of their life becomes disrupted.
Okay.
You know, so these are just a few of the signs. They're functioning in terms of analyzing, in terms of
Planning.
understanding, planning, and
Okay.
organizing becomes affected. And
So,
my
so you may notice that persons are making inappropriate decisions, for
Okay.
example. So they're spending money inappropriately, or they're making decisions about business that is not quite, quite appropriate for the business.
or their norm.
Right, or their norm, right?
Okay.
So they're not managing their finances as well as, so they're not able to balance the checkbook anymore. They're not managing their bills. So the normal day-to-day functions associated with planning their lives, making decisions about their lives, and executing that in a way that is organized,
Okay.
they slowly lose that ability. So it shows in the daily functioning that individual may have too.
Right, exactly. In
And
fact,
this is over a period of time, or how do you measure it? Because I say, for example, I know sometimes people, when they get, they're getting burnt out or just tired, you might forget things. So, we don't want them to get nervous and say, oh boy.
Yes, I have to laugh because that's something that comes up often when we do presentations. Well, I'm forgetful. Does that mean that I'm having dementia? So, no, if stress is one of the things. Living a high stress life is one of the risk factors.
Okay.
And when we are stressed and we are busy, we may have periods when we seem to be forgetful.
Okay.
And really it's because we're not focusing or paying attention as much as we should. Now, with dementia, what you see is the inability of persons to be able to retrace and recall and bring that information back. So, it's like when you leave the room, you leave the room to go to the next room to get something. You get there and you can't remember what it is you went to get.
Yeah.
A normal person will retrace their steps and then they're able to recall why they were going there. A person with dementia cannot do that recall. They cannot retrieve that information.
Okay.
So even with cueing, as we call it, and that's one of the tests that we do, even if we give you a clue as to what it is we are trying to get you to remember, they're unable to bring that information back out.
Okay.
Okay? And, the period of time, so, in the medical circles, we know that at the time that, on average, when persons present to the physicians with complaints of having issues with their memory, by that point, it is estimated that the persons may have been suffering with the condition for at least 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
Okay, because what happens is in the early stages, we tend to ignore, go into denial a little bit.
Exactly.
We say, especially if it's an older person, you say, oh, well, they're getting older, so it's normal for them to not remember. And that's one of the key messages that we we want to deliver, that memory loss is not a normal part of aging.
Okay.
Right? So because you're getting older, it doesn't automatically mean that you should suffer with memory loss.
Okay.
So that's something we need persons to be aware of, and that's something that we stress when we do our awareness sessions. Okay, so the time from diagnosis, but when we make a formal diagnosis, to the end, because Alzheimer's is progressive, is usually about 15 to 20 years to death. And it is longer once persons are taking some of the recommended treatments. So the progress of the condition may be slower. And of course, there are other things that can increase the progress of the condition, especially if you have, underlying medical conditions that are not well controlled. Then that will cause the condition to progress even faster.
Yeah, so you mentioned earlier, Ms. Williams, as far as the effect of the respiratory disease or cardiovascular can have on the brain function.
Exactly. There is definitely, there have been a lot of research in terms of the link between the non-communicable diseases and as a major risk factor, basically, on the effect of Alzheimer's. So one of the things that we're really advising people is to look at those, look at that lifestyle aspect,
Okay.
you know, in terms of, let's see, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, the respiratory function, because those are major risk factors.
That are.
Yes.
So this is perfect segue into then to talk about, you know, why the concern and the prevalence, because we know that we have high prevalence of hypertension, of diabetes, of high cholesterol. So
Yes.
this is something now that we're saying there is linkage,
Yes.
that then we
Yes.
would expect to see
Yes.
now a prevalence of the
Yes.
Alzheimer's disease coming onto the scene.
Yes.
Yes,
And I mean,
yes.
you know, it was one of the things that got me interested in the movement, because, you know, when you look at our, what we call our public health profile in the BVI, you know, we are falling right in with the rest of the world. You know, we have our epidemic of chronic diseases here with us. And you know, the rest of the world has the experience that, you know, that increase in the prevalence of chronic diseases, we're seeing, you know, the same increase being followed with dementias. And whereas, you know, when I was in residency, we learned that Alzheimer's, particularly Alzheimer's, was, you know, it was classified as a condition of the elderly. So you had to be, one of the criteria was you had to be over 65 to
Okay.
be diagnosed with, with Alzheimer's.
Okay.
Now,
We're seeing people as
we're
young
seeing,
as 30.
yes, we're seeing
really?
persons,
Young.
young persons who are having symptoms and signs in keeping with dementia. And it's thought to be related again to the same kind of the underlying damage that's happening when you have chronic disease. Is, you know, it basically affects, I mean, essentially the blood supply to the brain is affected, you know, the way the body is reacting to stress, so it allows for the creation of, you know, the plaques and the tangles, and therefore, you know, we're seeing more and more younger persons who are exhibiting, and it has now become a focus of research actually.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, to get an understanding of, you know, what is driving, what's the pathophysiology really behind this younger group.
Okay.
And if you think about that group, you know, that's the age group where persons are supposed to be in the most productive years of your life. You have responsibilities, you're raising your family. So, you know, it can have a devastating effect, really, on your economy if your working population now starts showing up with, you know, this condition.
Wow.
It's definitely it will definitely become an economic impact, not only on the society as a whole, but on the individual family. Because when you look at someone who has Alzheimer's or any other dementia, the family has to take care of them. You have to get a caretaker. A member of the family may need to step away from their job and actually be involved in the caretaking. So there's a loss of that income, you know, that's necessary to keep the family going. So the economic impact is astronomical.
It's major.
It's major when you think of the numbers that are increasing in terms of Alzheimer's.
Wow.
I mean, Alzheimer Disease International has said, which is a federation, an international federation of national Alzheimer's association throughout the world, which we are an emerging member association, and that's a very important link for us. They have said there's close to 50 million persons right now that are diagnosed with a dementia, and every 3 seconds
You get one new case.
you have one new case.
Every 3 seconds.
Every so you can
3
count
seconds.
1, 2, 3. Someone was just diagnosed with dementia, and so there's approximately 10,000 persons a year. So by the time 2025 or 2050, those numbers are going to be doubling.
Yeah.
So it'll become 70, 80,000 to 100 million, you know, to 100, you know, by
Yeah.
it's going to be
It's
the
astronomical.
impact.
Yeah.
It is.
Exactly, the
very
impact
astronomical.
globally.
Wow.
You know,
And I think that's something too where I'm glad you guys are out there doing the awareness, because it is something again that we attributed as part of aging,
Yes.
and figured, you know, this, you just come to accept it and deal with it.
Yes.
But the fact that now in terms of chronic disease and the linkages, and that we have to start paying attention to addressing those problems in and of themselves before they know it's compounded, so to speak. Because
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
you have
Absolutely.
to have diabetes, hypertension, you know, and Alzheimer's.
Yes.
It's that's a
quadruple
serious.
issue.
Yes, that's a
Yes.
very serious situation. So
Yes, yeah.
I'm glad, you know, because that's the thing where, you know, in order to prevent now, we have to do the education, you know, and encourage persons to make the control the things that you're in control of. Because that's one of the
Yes.
things we oftentimes like to say, well, I'm going to die of something, you know, and I'm like, that is not the point. This is about quality of life,
Yeah.
you know. So do
Exactly.
you want to die of something but suffer for 15 years,
Right.
you know, because you start off with maybe diabetes, and then it progresses and hypertension comes on the scene, and then we start talking about things like organ failure, and then dementia on top of that. I don't think so.
No.
You don't want to die from all of that.
Right.
We're gonna die. Let's die because we die.
Yes,
I don't know. That's just me. But I always like. I am like, no. That's just a cop out for you to do what you want to do,
Yes.
and not
Exactly.
understand everything that we do. Our choices have consequences.
It is.
They do.
Exactly.
And a lot of times we don't think about the consequences on our immediate families. You know, so it's okay to feel that. Okay, you could feel that, you know, okay, you know, whatever, you know, if I get this, fine, somebody will take care of me. But is that really how we want to live?
Yeah.
I mean, if
Dependent on somebody
dependent
else.
on someone,
Exactly. Or
at
be a
some
burden
point,
to
or
someone.
yes, or be a burden,
to someone.
or be in a place where, you know, eventually with Alzheimer's, or, you know, most of the dementias, you will get to the place where your ability to make decisions about your life and the type of care you receive, you're not going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Somebody else will be tasked with that responsibility. So if you have a son or a daughter or
And we hope
husband
you
or
have
wife,
somebody. That's the other
right,
thing. That some
who-
people might be in a situation where they don't have
where you don't
a
have
close relative
Right.
to
you
be
would-
able to
Exactly.
do that.
exactly, and you would want to, you know, ensure your contribution would be to ensure that, you know, those individuals understand what you would want. And that's part of the reason for pushing for early diagnosis.
Diagnosis.
Okay.
Exactly.
And so the prevention, yes, but if you do get it, because the truth is we still haven't quite gotten to, okay, how do we stop it if you get it? We haven't quite gotten there yet. We're
No.
getting there, hopefully.
Yes.
But if you do get it, you know, because you have a family history or because you've had these other risk factors, something as simple, Shaina, as, you know, we have an issue with scooters, right? So brain injury,
Yes.
okay, from scooter accidents,
Yes.
could predisposes you to cognitive impairment, which, you know, can show up looking like a dementia. It may not be Alzheimer's,
Okay.
but it, you know, the principles in terms of treatment are the same.
Okay.
So, you know, none of us are immune. We would like to think that, you know, maybe it wouldn't happen to
yeah.
us, and we live in that space. But, you know, with what we're seeing, and in the BVI, we're working on trying to get a handle on the numbers.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, because that's important, you know, from a whole policy planning perspective.
Okay.
What numbers are we really dealing with in the BVI? So between, you know, the association in collaboration with social development, you know, we're trying to pool all of our resources and see if we can get an idea of what our prevalence
how big the
is, how
problem
big
is.
is the problem,
Okay.
and because that has implications in terms of treatment
Yes.
and provision of services.
Okay.
Okay, because, you know, we have issues here where persons, as Edna said earlier, some people have to step away from jobs to look after loved ones. Maybe because maybe we haven't made the provision for our care.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't think about it. You know, you know, persons may be having challenges with, you know, with properties and, you know, their financial
Finances.
arrangements because we didn't, you
Make
know,
plans.
we didn't
Yeah.
make plans, right? So the whole thing about early diagnosis is about helping people to put those kinds of plans in place
Okay.
while you still have the ability to do that, right? And also to help, you know, the family to prepare.
Okay.
Because you have to prepare. This is not going to be a chronic illness. It's going to be with you. And it's going to it takes a lot of resources to provide the care.
Okay.
All right?
All right. All right. Well, we'll take our commercial break here and come back and talk more about treatment and some more in terms of the collaborative relationships that the association has and what's the way forward. Okay. So we'll take a commercial break and be right back. Welcome back. You're tuned into the Vigilate Dialogues. I'm your host, Shaina Smith. And with me this evening, I have persons from the Virgin Islands Alzheimer's Association. And they've been sharing very valuable information, I must add, ladies, because some of this stuff I didn't know either. So let's talk a bit about the treatment, because we touched on that a bit before the break, in terms of how the disease is treated, and then go into some more in terms of the work of the association and what you guys are hoping to accomplish.
So, with Alzheimer's dementia, there's no cure at the moment. There's quite a lot of research, active research going on, and I do know that there are some medications that are looking promising.
Okay.
There's one particular research that talks about medications that seem to halt the progress of the disease, but you know, we await the
Okay.
outcome of
Okay.
those. So currently what's on the market, all of the medications that are on the market slow the progression of the disease and helps individuals to maintain an independent lifestyle for a longer period of time.
Okay.
So whereas without treatment, on average, from diagnosis to death, you're looking at about 15, 20 years. With treatment, that period can be extended for much longer, so much so that individuals may die of something else other than the Alzheimer's disease.
Okay.
And that's important. Now, it's an important awareness point for us here in the BVI, because traditionally we take the position of, you know, the person's losing their memory, they're older anyway, so that's just life. Okay, and we have a tendency to really not actively do anything about it.
In terms of pursuing treatment.
In terms of pursuing treatment, in terms of, you know, pursuing evaluation, and so that is something that, as you know, through the association, we're hoping to see some behavior change occur in that. And the reason why is, you know, because there are many medical conditions that can present with a picture looking like dementia.
Okay.
Okay, and so especially in cases where you're having younger persons being diagnosed, it is very important to look and make sure that there's no underlying medical condition, things like thyroid disease, tumors in the brain. Okay, those can present with these changes, memory changes, and if there's an underlying medical condition and you treat that condition, then it halts the progress.
Okay.
Okay, so the person essentially is, you know, they're not cured, but you stop that progression.
Okay.
So looking is important, and then getting an accurate diagnosis made, so being evaluated to, you know, to the place where you have an accurate diagnosis made is important. And then the treatments can be used. In the BVI, we carry 2 of the medications that are on the market, and they're both approved for treatments of all stages of dementia. You know, the stages are mild, moderate, and severe.
Okay.
So those treatments are available. And it's important for persons, especially younger persons, to be aware of that, because it can be quite devastating to be 45 years old and be diagnosed as having a dementia. Right?
Now,
So
that's looking from the medical perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's also the psychosocial perspective
Right.
that one needs to also look at in terms of a way of treating or dealing with the issues of Alzheimer's. There are a number of things that can be done by the individual and family in general
Okay.
to slow the progression or slow the onset of a dementia. I mean, there are things like decreasing your stress level.
Control
Yes,
what you can
control what you
control.
can exactly. Watching your diet, going on a Mediterranean diet, high
Yes.
vegetable, high fruits, nuts, lowering your meat intake, increasing your fish intake.
And let me interject here, because I remember the first time I realized how big an impact in terms of our diet, especially now versus a generation ago, has
Yes.
changed.
Yes.
Where a doctor was doing a presentation, and he was saying that, I think he was an oncologist, and he recently moved here to practice in the BVI, and he was saying he was shocked by the amount of cancer cases, and believing that it is linked to the type of diet.
Right.
So because we have a more Western diet,
Exactly.
where again high red meat content and preserved food and all these other bad stuff, that it has been having a negative effect
Yes.
on our state of health here in the BVI, because we've moved away from more natural food
Yes.
that our grandparents grew
Yes.
up on.
Exactly.
Yes.
That for us, again, you're seeing things like hypertension and diabetes in 30s and 40-year-olds, when before,
Even
again,
younger
that
than
used to
that.
be
Even-
attributed to the older generation.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that is something that we really can't take for granted, I think, in terms of the diet and food being our medicine.
Right, exactly. I mean, basically what's happening is that we're mimicking, or health issues are mimicking Western world
Yes.
or Northern world, instead of us maintaining what our natural state is. There are a number of other things that you can do. Sleep.
Yes.
Very
Getting
important.
sleep is so important. I mean, many of us think, oh, we could survive on 4 or 5 hours of sleep at night. But now they're saying, and it's coming to be so true, that we really need that 8 hours of sleep, because it's during that time that our brain actually
Repairs.
cleanses itself,
Okay.
repairs,
Repairs
gets rid of
damage.
all those,
Toxins that build up.
toxins. Exactly. So sleep is so important.
Okay.
I mentioned being physically active, challenging your brain, going to school, taking a course, playing chess,
Reading.
Learning a new
Learning.
language.
Okay.
Yes, a new language.
Learning a new language.
Right.
is
Yeah,
one.
that'll challenge your
Yes,
brain.
exactly.
Yes,
Because
yes.
all those are things that allow your brain synapses to
Create new.
renew and allow those neurons to start shooting across the synapses and repair and develop new synaptic paths. And this is what the brain needs in order to continue, for us to continue
Okay.
living an active and I would say a productive life. So there are things that we can actually do to help us slow down or even retard the process
Lower
and
that risk
progression.
that you might
Lowers
have.
the risk,
yes.
exactly.
So those are some of the preventative.
Yes.
And one of the important tenets that's coming out now out of the research is the whole importance of socialization.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you know how we are here, right?
Yeah,
Shaina?
we live with the
65,
full-
we retire,
Yeah.
and then we stop.
Yeah.
Just
No.
like that, right? Right. That's bad for
Bad
your
for you.
brain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So don't stop, slow down.
You just change gears.
Change, yes,
Yeah,
but
just
staying actively, involved and socializing is so important. And it's coming out now as one of the therapeutic interventions for patients with Alzheimer's.
Exactly.
Doing the whole socialization and music and music therapy.
Yeah.
So those activities, would help, especially if you know you're at risk. Know your risk level. So
Okay.
if it is in your family, then you know that you yourself need to be paying attention and keep in check, so you can modify all of the various factors that we talked about earlier to
Right.
try to decrease your overall risk.
Risk for the disease.
Right.
Very key. All right, so we're winding down our hour actually. running out of time. We're going to have to do a part 2 another time.
I think so.
Let's see, what do we want to leave? Okay, let's talk a bit about some of, I guess, the activities, the way forward. I see you guys have here a membership drive.
Yes.
So
Yes.
persons can become members of the association. How would they do that?
They can do it in 2 ways. They can email us at the end of the show that they'll be showing or email address.
Okay.
You know, so they can email BVI Alzheimer's Awareness.
Okay.
You know, and let us know their interest. They can also message us on Facebook. We have a very, very active Facebook page.
Okay.
It's not only active, it's very informational. And we have a library on Facebook also that has longer and more in-depth articles on dementia.
Okay.
So those are a couple of the ways that they can actually get involved with us. And if they're really interested in, especially a group, in us presenting, you know, an awareness session to them, we can. Just a few weeks ago, we did it in Virgin Gorda.
Okay.
You know, the Lions, Valley Sound Lions, organized a group, and there were about 30, 35 persons.
Okay.
And we did, it was more than an hour presentation, very active,
Active.
very
Interactive.
interactive,
Questions.
lots
Okay.
of questions.
Good.
So those are some of the ways that
So
people
the
can.
word is getting out there.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Great.
We need the word out there.
So June is Brain Health Month.
Yes, June is Brain Health Month. Last year in June, we did a celebrating brain health activity at Queen Elizabeth Park, Queen Elizabeth II Park. This year, we're looking at having a walk to end Alzheimer's, and also really start pushing the campaign that you are not alone, that you, the family member, you, the caretaker, you're not alone in this whole
There's
issue.
support.
There is support available. There's the Alzheimer's Association. There are other family members that we want to get together to support each other
Good.
and to share information, share practices that they've had in terms of dealing with some of the behaviors that they've seen. We also have the Caribbean Alzheimer's Association
Okay.
that we're a member of. That's part of this You Are Not Alone campaign that we're trying to provide.
Okay.
And also the International Alzheimer's Disease, you know, Alzheimer's Disease International, which both Dr. Samuel and I were fortunate to attend one of their university for a week last year,
Okay.
which they invited us. And they helped us, and they're helping us to move forward
Get
and
the
solidify.
association.
Yes,
Okay.
strengthen our
Up and
association.
running. Okay. So as we're getting ready to go, what are some of the key messages that we like our audience to remember from our conversation tonight?
First key message is
Yes.
memory loss is not a normal part of aging.
Right.
So that's the first key message that we want to leave persons with. So if you notice any symptoms, any concerns about memory and your memory not functioning, you know, get an evaluation done.
Okay.
There are a number of
And where
persons.
can they do that? That be at the hospital or their private doctor?
They can
They
do that, yeah. The
Right,
private
private
doctors,
doctors.
psychiatrists, neurologists,
Okay.
you know, there's some GPs as well who will take the time to do the
Full
evaluation.
Okay.
But you need to insist that you have a full evaluation done, because it's important, again, from the perspective of making sure that it is what it is.
Okay.
Yes?
Yeah, and not something that's mimicking.
Right.
Physical illness.
Yeah.
Right. We want people to understand also is that dementia is a disease, disease of the brain. That is not contagious.
Okay.
You know, I mean,
I won't get memory loss by touching you.
no,
No.
you won't get, absolutely not. You won't get memory loss by touching me or even be in my airspace.
Yeah. And that's one of the things actually we talked about, where, you know, being dementia friendly, as a dementia friendly society.
Yes.
Right.
That persons don't have these stigmas
Exactly.
Yes.
about
Yes.
interacting with
Yeah.
somebody that may have the disease. And, you know, and then they themselves feel uncomfortable because they don't understand it.
Yes.
Exactly.
So I think that's one of the key things definitely we want to underline for our audience tonight, that, you know, the more you understand about it, whether you have it as a personal, within your personal life, that you're able to be more comfortable around somebody
Yes.
and help them feel accepted, because
Exactly.
it's enough to have to deal with the fact that I'm not remembering stuff, and then people kind of have this, as if something is wrong with me.
Right.
Yes.
Could you
Yeah.
imagine?
And you're not sure what to
this
do
is?
or what to
Yeah.
say.
Right.
Yeah.
I always use this example in the presentation. Could you imagine grandma forgetting how to make dumb bread? And not remembering how to follow the recipe to make dumb bread.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say.
Yeah. It makes you pause.
It makes you pause.
Yeah.
How to make tarts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or even how to make coconut oil.
Because all of those are things they have committed to memory for
Exactly.
years.
For
So they're not written down anywhere in a lot
Right.
of instances. So yeah, it makes us pause. So we really have to be, I think, very conscious now in terms of saying, yes, we need to, just like how we, over the years now, we've become more accepting in terms of persons with mental disabilities, like autism, that we're able, we treat this with the same respect.
Yes.
Because that's essentially what we're saying, these
Yes.
persons are deserving of respect regardless of what the situation is, because I find we become more sympathetic to certain things. So if somebody says they have cancer, they get all the empathy and the sympathy, but for certain other things, it's something where I think in our own uncomfortable or ignorance,
Right,
you know,
exactly.
that we behave out of a certain
Yes.
way. It might not be intentional, but it's something that for us now is to be more conscious of it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So that's very key.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and one of the things that you have here is Alzheimer's disease usually starts by affecting people's short-term memory. So again, there are instances where we might be a little stressed, so we forgetting where we put the keys.
Yes.
But
If you can find it.
you can find it eventually, then
Yes.
that's a
Yeah,
good
okay.
thing.
Yes,
Right.
yes, yes.
But if it's something where for weeks you can't find these keys,
yes, it's
it
a
might be
short-term memory,
yeah.
and then it slowly pervades
Progresses,
different areas.
Yeah.
So, look out for that. That's one of the key
That's the
symptoms.
first. Yeah, that's the symptom that we all recognize
Yes.
first.
Yes.
Memory
But
loss.
yet there are other things that have happened
Yeah.
and have been happening for the past 5 years, 3 to 5 years, that
Yeah.
we're not, especially cognitive impairment. So-
Very key, very key.
Yeah.
Well, ladies, thank you for stopping by the
Thank you.
boardroom and sharing with us. I wish you guys well, and definitely come back when you have any upcoming events that we'd like to
Sure.
let the public know more about, and to keep continuing raising their awareness around dementia and Alzheimer's, and the importance of us in general being a healthier society.
Yes.
Yes.
Because we lose in touch. We need to go back to the
Yes, we
cassava.
need to-
Yes. The complex carbohydrates.
Yes, I'm telling you. Because
yes.
it's so interesting that people, after these things become pervasive, then we know, well, okay, we have to stop, like, say, with deodorant. I know that's a big thing I'm hearing people talk about. And those are all things, lifestyle changes that you can
Yes.
make. But, it's important. We control what we can control.
Right.
Those major
Absolutely.
things
Absolutely.
as far as our diet and our lifestyle, so that, we can be as healthy as possible. Because, like you pointed out, it can have economic impact
Yes.
on our society, as well as the social and the psychological impacts to
Effects,
the
yes.
families and friends. So
Yes.
awesome. Great job.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Appreciate being here.
You've been tuned into the Vigilante Dialogues. If you missed us, be back here on Sundays at 3:30 p.m. or Mondays at 8 p.m. You can also find us on YouTube. Our channel is Vigilante Dialogues, and you can watch all of our older episodes as well as the current ones. Until next time, this is your host, Shaina Smith, saying let us continue the change in conversation for a better Virgin Islands.